Harvey Dent, Joker, Penguin, Bane.
It's Bane! You know it's Bane! I'm here every day, Todd.
Batman has some of the most iconic villains in all of superhero comics. Whether it be making an appearance in a comic, a movie, video games, or animated shows. These villains make up a core piece of superhero content. Now, some of these appearances will go down as cinematic masterpieces, while others will go down as something that happened and hopefully quickly forgotten. So where will the latest iteration of Batman in the Caped Crusader fall? Well, let's see if Harvey Dent and the other villains were bright enough to keep this bat in the spotlight. Caped Crusader gave us a Batman without all the fancy tech, as he goes up against the absolute wackiest villains I've ever seen. Amazon's latest release puts their own little twist on some of Gotham's most notorious baddies.
That rainy eve that I drove you out.
Each episode was its own contained story, with few villains making it past the end screen, giving us an ultimate proof of concept. Although most of the 10-episode season revolved around one-time villains that would show up and then get taken down in the same episode, there is one big exception. One that stands above the rest as a pinnacle of what Caped Crusader had to offer. Out of all the criminals Batman has to knock out, let's take a look at who was done the best. The one character that showed what it means to become a villain throughout the span of a season. His name is Harvey Dent, also known as Two-Face, because he has two faces. For those unfamiliar with Harvey Dent, he goes a little bit like this. District Attorney Harvey Dent was really good at his job, sometimes too good. While prosecutors are supposed to be on the side of justice, their role is to not ensure someone is found guilty. Instead, their role is to present the facts, correctly arguing for the possibility of guilt. Harvey Dent learned a little too much from Harvey Specter.
Don't go to trial if you're not going to win.
And when he did, in popular adaptation The Dark Knight, Harvey put away over 500 people. The number in Caped Crusader isn't mentioned, but it is obvious he's willing to bend the rules as far as they can without breaking to make sure his numbers only went up. That is all good and well until he gets splashed with acid, creating his new persona and alter ego, Two-Face. As I said, whether it be comics, animated shows, movies, Harvey Dent and versions of him have appeared in all of them. So some details will change depending on where we look. But him being a kick-ass lawyer and failing the acid-proof test are staples in his story. This brings us to Caped Crusader's version, where we will see early on his absolute confidence and ruthless attitude. To properly discuss his arc, we'll break it up into 3 parts. So for part 1, we have Early Harvey, before the beginning of his downfall, where we can see he is full of confidence and ego. In episode 1, we can take this on full display. He has no care in the world and comes off as completely heartless as he talks to Barbara, the defense attorney, in a case he is prosecuting. He simply exclaims,
"Well, then he should have squealed on his bosses. Not my fault he wouldn't take a deal."
Barbara even claims Harvey himself knows the defendant was set up, and the way he responds, it's clear he does not care.
We do not care.
There is even clear tampering with the case, as a key witness goes on a trip, and all he has to say is,
"I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about, Barbara."
Then comes the true brazen part of this conversation. Harvey does what most people will remember him for, the infamous coin flip. He flips it, saying heads is 20 years to life, tails is the chair, as an electric chair. Damn, that's dark. Barbara flips on him, trying to decide someone's fate by a coin. He knows she won, even without looking at the coin, since it's his patent pending double heads. He so nonchalantly is willing to talk about putting someone behind bars or giving them the chair, and yet he knew even in his bet, the chair was never an option, showing his cruel, but not deathly cruel nature. It's terrible he's willing to give someone he knows is innocent 20 years. So the show gives you this slight glimmer at the beginning to say, this man is despicable, but not beyond redemption, which is going to be a theme throughout his arc. His next appearance is in the same episode, but on the fancy boat of Penguin. We can see him, Commissioner Gordon, and Barbara all talking. The way she stares daggers into this man is giving pure annoyed energy. It's amazing. And here we see again, his confidence and arrogance shines, referring to Barbara as a Spitfire and claiming once he is mayor, not if, not on the chance, but when he is mayor, there will be a lot of changes. This is only further fueled when he meets up with Bruce Wayne, the Playboy, alter ego of Batman. His cocky, arrogant, rich persona that pairs with Harvey so well. Bruce Wayne really needs to sell his image to the public. Meanwhile, this is just who Harvey Dent is. No faking the arrogant and haughty nature here. That can clearly be seen in a future episode where Harvey is fraternizing with Gotham's finest. Well, the only police they have, so I guess it is their finest. All we can hear is his punchline, double or nothing, further emphasizing his gambling nature that we saw in the coin flip in episode 1, and his arrogance to go for broke at any cost. That is nothing compared to his next encounter with Detective Montoya. He's excited that a case is part of a bigger murder investigation, and all Harvey can think of is headlines, good news press. So he offers Montoya a deal. Give me an arrest and we can make a great trial. Montoya is obviously sick of this man, even offending his honor and pride by asking if anyone would do. Since episode 1 already showed he's not above putting someone innocent behind bars if it improves his ratings. When sweet talking doesn't do it, he goes through very veiled threats.
You'll want to be on my good side, Renee.
Further showcasing his slow creep from arrogant to the beginning of a god complex, as if being a mayor would give him this overwhelming power and he has the right to that power. Everyone he puts behind bars should be there, and why not? He can easily send them there, and being mayor will only increase what he deserves to have. The final view we get of this arrogant Harvey is in the Catwoman episode. Since Batman was at the scene of the crime and there is no proof Selina Kyle stole the items in question, her charges are eventually dropped. I'll discuss some of the changes the Caped Crusader made, and making Selina come from a rich family. It's not one of my favorite decisions, but that's for later. Just look at Bullock's face. It's straight comedy. Of course, Barbara comes at him, and he has no problem putting the innocent into prison unless they come from royalty or are just pretty. Harvey can only respond with, "Do you really think I would sink that low? Well, maybe I would, if you weren't flat broke." Leading us to one of the best pieces of foreshadowing we have, as Harvey will indeed be in need of money and sink to levels he did not expect in order to achieve his dream. So when he ends with, "Well, maybe I would," we continue to see the transition into not only willing to bend the rules, but actually going against the rules for money, as we will get into. As the next episode with a rich ghost robbing poor people might be the funniest setup for an episode I've ever seen. And if that wasn't funny enough, that episode sparks his descent into madness and the end of cool, confident Harvey. As with a lot of good villains, they might not start downright evil. Instead, they break one moral, then justify it, then break another one, and justify that one until there are none left. We already saw Harvey break some of his morals as district attorney, and now we will see him break some more. It starts off with Harvey's rival, Mayor Jessup, coming at Harvey declaring this man is buying the election, which are bold words since the mayor has the newspapers in his pocket. Hey, you control the news media, you control everything. This is compounded by the fact that unions are pulling funding from Harvey, so though he may have money, a campaign is quite expensive, and the man is running out of funds. To show he is a man of the people, he begrudgingly, agrees to a press event, which is determined to be a press event on a train? That's just an LMAO in the waiting. As we're introduced to the crime boss, Mr. Thorne. How did Mr. Thorne get into Harvey's car? Well, it pays to have connections, and this mobster wants to keep his connections as he's backing both mayor candidates to have them in his pocket. Hey, if you bet on red and black, you're always a winner. I guess, unless it's 0 or 00. But regardless, here he comes with the perfect offer, showing he doesn't respect or care about Harvey. Harvey has this big word saying he would never stoop so low to Thorne's side, and Thorne is just like, "Hey kid, I don't care what you say, money runs the world, and I already know you bend the rules, so you'll definitely bend for me, a man that's used to getting what he wants." And it does not take long because the press event goes downhill. Who would have thought? Well, not in this way. This man is out here taking a train like he's part of the working class. Sir, we just saw you get into a car in Gotham. Well, this goes from looking stupid to looking bad after a ghost. Yeah, you heard that right. A literal ghost comes in and robs the rich. Wait, that's not right. He's out here robbing poor people? Honestly, this is pretty funny, as Harvey tries to give him money and the ghost is like, I won't take from you. I'll take from him though. Man said, even in death, I hate poor people, which is the level of hating I aspire to reach. So Jessup, with his connections, uses the press to blame Harvey for letting the poor people getting robbed while he stood there and did nothing. And down he goes in the polls. Even the biggest donors are taking out money and you can see the frustration. And this right here is a wonderful scene. Gone is the confident Harvey. He's just cornered and frustrated, breaking his framed picture. And right here is where there are so many levels. It's absolute cinema. As he cracks the picture, we can see it's one side of his face that's cracked to foreshadow his descent into becoming Two-Face. Not only does the frame crack, the crack represents a crack into his confidence, his morals, and now, without his war chest, he is reluctantly willing to bend the rules more than he ever thought he would need to. As his next move is to call Thorne, effectively giving up whatever high ground he had. Well, when one press event doesn't go well, here comes another. And so Harvey Dent is here at the carnival along with Bruce Wayne. Harvey just wants to use these kids to get higher into the polls, but that is politics. And oh my God, who is this? She looks like a botched plastic surgery example. Sheesh, Bruce, you have too much money to have this be your date. But back to Harvey. Things just keep getting worse as Thorne decides this carnival is the perfect place and time to do the exchange. Just like Harvey's face when he realizes this man is here at the carnival with kids, destroying the persona he tried to make for the people. He made an attempt to bring that confidence back, but with one look, he was brought back into reality and forced to do something he never wanted to do. He is even so distracted, he can't feign caring about the kids that are lost as he blows off this poor old lady. And of course, our boy Batman comes through. Thorne once again doesn't care what Harvey wants, nor caring that Harvey is uncomfortable with the exchange, as he knows he's going to go through it regardless. So with the money, there comes a cost. As Thorne says, this man right here to rob people of their life savings, just like that accidental trip that happened in episode 1, just say some evidence was lost and let it go. Thorne even shows he's about to get rid of some evidence somehow, saying, some evidence is going to disappear real soon, buddy boy. So although Harvey is saying he wants to reform the city, once he takes that money, he knows there's only one option no matter how much he tries to fight it. Here we get a quick but powerful source of imagery. After Harvey blows off the lady and takes the money, he is already showing his second face. Two-Face is slowly coming to the surface. We see Bruce takes over the job of looking for the kids and he passes underneath the two-headed man poster. Maybe just another carnival attraction, but applies to both of our characters here. Bruce has his second head being Batman, the one he turns into as he starts looking for the kids. Harvey has his morals, upstanding side, and now due to his desire to win the election, he showed his penchant to not only bend the rules, but to start to break them. And these two men are two faces of the same coin. Leading us to the finale, his downfall, as we get into his villain episode. He contemplates dropping charges, but instead decides to go with it, and even holds the defendant so that he can't run away. Well, the mob isn't running, and bam, acid bath, thus starting the journey of Two-Face. Before we wrap up Harvey's story, let's discuss the other villains we see in their own episode and how Harvey stands out from the rest. Harvey Dent had a lot of the qualities I look for in a villain. He was a prominent character that didn't just show up. That's not a hard requirement, but it is neat when there is such interesting foreshadowing and we can see the villain's path and how they became to be on the other side of the hero. In shows we spend the entire time with the hero, we are always shown how they go to that side of justice, but too often a villain can just show up and be evil without giving us a reason to care about them, except maybe at the end before they die, as a flashback. The only other villain that did this with multiple episodes was Harley Quinn, who you always got weird vibes from whenever she showed up. And that brings us all to character consistency. Now, if Penguin, after dumping her own child into the sea, went back and went, "Oh no, my child," that is obviously going to be a turnoff. Penguin was shown as absolutely vicious, even telling her other son, "Well, I guess you're my favorite now," after killing her supposedly favorite. Penguin was even willing to blow up any part of the town to make sure she got to her traitor's son. Side note, this absolutely low-tech site is supposed to be accurate is actually hilarious. But I appreciate Temp Penguin. No one can say you didn't try. It's impossible to really say that a villain sticks to their roots if they show up and 23 minutes later are gone. Not that each deserves a mini-arc. For example, Flamebug was just a guy that liked fire. He was actually the least interesting part of the episode he was in, despite being the main villain. In the Flamebug episode, the police are desperate to catch Batman, which they then abandon the next episode. But we're not here to critique that part, because things needed to move. Hey, I said it was a great proof of concept, not that it was a 10-episode masterpiece. So most interesting parts of the episode was watching Bullock and Flask make a plan to capture Batman since their usual tactics weren't working. So they used Harley Quinn's idea, or Dr. Quinzel. We got to see their dynamic unfold even more and see Bullock be the frontman of everything, a fact that actually does come up in later episodes, as we'll get into. Although until I started looking Bullock up for this video, I did not know he was pretty much unused for a lot of Batman's history, but they got him pretty accurately. That is until he turned over his new leaf. Hopefully that happens at some point. Gotham, you lied to me! Then you have another villain who we feel sorry for at the end of the episode as she is introduced to capture kids and ends up killing her brother. Batman stops her with the help of a boy she was trying to suck the life out of, leading to one of my favorite moments, where Batman does not let the boy call the girl a monster, even after she almost killed him and Batman. He simply shields her from the light and carries her into safety, giving me flashbacks to the heartbreaking scene between Batman and Ace in the Batman animated series. Roll the clip.
Could you stay with me? I'm scared.
So though not impossible to make a villain memorable in one episode, we see the potential of building these villains out and not just being one-stop shops for a beatdown. So let's get into how this potential paid off in Harvey's 2-villain episode saga. I'm joking, he never became Two-Face. This was all a misdirection. He won the bid for mayor. He has his life story. He's done everything he's ever wanted to do. Long live Mayor Dent. Except we all know that's not true. He never got mayor, even if there were any pity votes for his acid face. It's just a bad, bad dream. So that's how we begin the first of 2 Harvey Dent villain episodes, with a misdirection. It doesn't last long, as we immediately get that taste of Two-Face as his evil side starts to pop up more. Just as he's describing his DA replacement, his voice gets deeper and his face gets angrier. Oh, we are almost at full villain mode. What actually breaks him is Batman. Yeah, funny enough, it's Bruce Wayne that puts the final nail in the coffin, where we see one of Batman's few errors, as he convinces his friend, go outside, while not being mentally stable. Sounds like a good idea. Oh, but he's being a good friend. Nope. He simply wants to catch the people that did it to him, which seems good, but it's more about punishing evil than getting justice. So instead of talking at his place or even buying out the restaurant so that he's outside but not being gawked at, which we all know he has the money to do, Bruce just takes Harvey to dinner and interrogates this man. Harvey literally says,
I should cut that smarmy grin right off his friggin' face.
Harvey, it's fine. So, the guy who attacked you.
I want to peel his face off. And Bruce just goes, damn, that's crazy. Okay, so anyways, who attacked you? Leading Harvey to obviously blow his top and make a scene where we get to see the damage. And it looks fine. Has been done better. Yes. Is the fact his hair is gray instead of gone because that's what acid should do bother me? Yes. Yes, it does. Thankfully, there are moments like the following that show just how great Harvey is and how nuanced his descent is. Here we see another application of mirrors as Harvey is talking to himself, rationalizing how he came into this position, which is a very human thing to do. If something bad happens to you, the first and easiest thing to do is blame someone externally. Don't blame yourself for getting into bed with the mob and taking money in exchange for a service and then not doing that service, knowing there would be consequences. And instead of caring, blame others. Thankfully, Harvey does take some of the blame. He knows he has sins, but he believes he paid for them. Sir, How in the world did you pay for it? One might say your current situation is paying for it. You just don't like the bill. So at first, it's his good side trying to talk his evil side out of it. But as he turns his face, the mirror perfectly divides the two, except the evil side has fully taken over, putting his non-acid stricken face into an evil look. Oh, and he is here to play. As an old man is getting mugged, Harvey goes off beating the assailant's ass. The only issue here is that he starts with the coin flip, giving heads he lives and tails he doesn't. If we recall from episode 1, we had a coin with 2 heads, so he always intended to let this man live. Despite saying he wants to kill him, there just isn't enough desire for this particular man to die, showing that his decent nature isn't completely gone. Just yet. This is further emphasized as he begins his journey to find Thorn and his men to exact revenge. First stop is a goon who he beats to get information. Alright, information obtained, time to head out. Well, the goon couldn't shut up. Freak. Harvey just sighs and proceeds to go to town on this man. He didn't want to do it, but sometimes you gotta be some ass. I love that sigh. It just reminds me of the
oh boy, here I go killing again.
And killing he does, as we know Harvey has no superpower. The man has no great technology. Only difference between me and him is an anger issue. Well, then the fact the man knows the law and is willing to kill. Again, slight differences. So it's awesome when he uses the cover of smoke to get the jump on Thorn's thugs and absolutely demolishes a 3v1, leaving them to burn. Since Harvey doesn't see the mob as people, instead he sees them as
You aren't actually people. You're cancer.
Therefore, he's not killing anyone, he's ridding society of an evil. Not quite the level of acid, but leaving a man to burn is next level criminal activity. When taken at face value, it feels crazy, and well, it is. But for him, it's not. We already saw he was willing to bend the rules a bit to put someone in jail, even if they were 100% guilty. Once someone became an unproductive member of society, they are now
You're cancer.
and therefore must be removed. Instead, he used to do it legally as a DA, and now he's taken matters into his own hands. He's not become judge, no jury, just straight up executioner. We still see him waver in the car as he can't believe what he just did. He did leave a man to burn alive, and did it with a smile. His baddest moments don't stop as Batman tries to stop him and gets clapped up, and then decides to ram a car straight into Thorn's house, using cover and night again to take out Thorn's goons, just like Batman. Hey, he might have made a good Robin, all things considered. Just as he is about to kill Thorn himself, Thorn's son comes in and says, "You gotta go through me." Now this is when Harvey himself knows he's gone too far. The man just simply says,
But I never could resist a 2-for-1 special.
and points the gun at Thorn and his son. That is one of my favorite lines of the entire show. Just absolutely unhinged. It's just straight up evil and badass. Just no hesitation, straight to the putting in that work. Unfortunately, or fortunately, for him, Batman comes and beats his ass. And we can see that evil side gets broken up for a bit as he weeps, glad he didn't kill Thorn and his son. Mostly due to the fact he almost killed an innocent child and not the mobster, but hey, it would have been a great deal. So off to jail Harvey goes, and he's about to get a great deal as it all comes full circle. His lawyer arrives, and of course, it's Barbara Gordon. At one point on 2 different sides, and now she is here to defend him. They started the first episode as more or less enemies, 2 sides of the law, but were supposed to be on the same side of justice. Unfortunately, Harvey was never exactly on the side of justice, and now he sees himself on the other side of the law, needing her help. He even tries to ignore her and shoo her away, saying he's not worthy. So she does to him what he did to her in episode 1. She goes against what she said in episode 1. I'm not flipping for a man's life, except this time she knows exactly how the flip will go, using Harvey's own coin to make sure she represents him. Because heads, she represents him, tails, she walks away. And of course, it's a 2-headed coin. A truly great moment. It's things like this that made me think, goddamn, this could have been such an amazing series with such foreshadowing and callback as well as deep side characters, not just the villains. She even goes the extra mile of throwing him the coin, letting him realize, you just got tricked with your own magic. She is vindicated, thinking there is still good in him, and as he did give himself up and does a small thing of grabbing another patient's toy and handing it back to him, de-escalating a situation. You could learn from this, cops. Again, extremely small moments, but they speak mountains for characters. Two-Face's character comes out threatening Barbara, and we can see it.
Me too. It's his favorite trick.
So the hold Harvey has is slipping. even happens to Bruce as he is trying to help Harvey, but the Batman slips out.
Don't start growing a conscience now, Dent.
These two are indeed quite similar. Well, if you thought we would go by the law, you're mistaken. Harvey gets kidnapped, good old Bullock and Flask are doing the mob's dirty work. So, Harvey does what he does best, make fun of them, and even driving a wedge between them. As he lets Bullock know, you are always the fall guy, which has been set up the entire series. I'm telling you, when the setup is there, it's there. Well, this leads into a slow speed chase with Batman coming in, Commissioner Gordon, who has a badass moment with Big Boy Bullock as he puts a piece to his dome. Eventually, Harvey does the ultimate sacrifice. Since he's handcuffed to Barbara, he didn't have much of a choice when Flask finally decides to do some dirty work, shooting at Barbara, hitting and killing Harvey, who got in between them. Batman is big mad, using a gun for the first time ever. But he doesn't kill, so just got out a little bit of anger and knocks Flask out. But the icing on the cake is that he decides to throw a little batarang at Thorne, knowing he can't put him away right now, but the anger is there. Look how close he gets. Okay, back to Harvey with his death. He's done a full circle on his arc. Harvey went from cocky, arrogant DA that believed he was owed the title of mayor, and with that came the ultimate power he needed to put everyone that he considered bad away. To a frustrated kid that couldn't be patient and try again, he instead decided to take a shortcut and bail on it halfway through, despite knowing the risks. They turned into a villain that decided to do just what he would do as mayor, taking out the
Your cancer.
not on the lawful side, and finally a real friend as he sacrifices himself at the end. A man that puts himself on the line, thinking he wasn't worth a thing, constantly battling the anger inside of him that came out whenever it could as it slowly climaxed in episode 9. This tells that of a man's folly and what a few bad decisions can lead to a terrible, terrible end. Harvey wasn't the perfect villain, not even the most entertaining, but he was the deepest, and it seems the entire first season was set up just for him. He didn't have a prominent scene in every episode, and the fallout was rather quick, but he paves the way for what a villain could be and how they can be done pretty well, even in such a tight frame with other villains. There ends the story of Harvey. With season 1 wrapped up, the only question to ask is what would we look forward to next time? I got you covered for that, so let's take a look. Of course, there's the obvious, more villains, more episodes. I already mentioned that we didn't get to see the Joker, except for the teaser at the end. There are some villains I hadn't included, such as Riddler, Poison Ivy, Deathstroke, Ra's al Ghul. Batman quite literally.
Do you have a coterie of supervillains?
They can also build upon this season, looking at so many other animated shows to take inspiration from. I'm a huge fan of Batman Beyond, Batman the Animated Series, and so much more. I do try not to live too far into the past, as we have seen Kite Man got his own show, so who knows what's going on in the world right now. Even with all of these superstar villains, just relying on the name alone won't take this series anywhere. As we see, Penguin is one of the most notorious villains, only to be used up in the first episode. Although they can always make a return, there's nothing like that first episode they appear in. I was honestly surprised Penguin has such a short-lived tenure. Speaking of surprises, let's take a quick look at some of the other surprises. Since they made a good amount of changes, they can actually change any future villain they want to give a unique twist on things. Caped Crusader made some changes that have been seen before, such as the Black Gordons. They also made some changes we had not seen before, such as Penguin being a woman, Barbara being a defense attorney, Catwoman coming from a well-off family that is falling on hard times, and a Harley Quinn with no Joker in sight, not even in her backstory. Aw, Puddin'. Some of these changes work and are interesting, such as Alfred and Batman having a tense relationship in the beginning. Batman, even as a kid, is shown as very intense, and although a little quick, we can see throughout the season that hardness being chipped away and start to get the relationship we're used to seeing between the two. Not as servant and master, but more of a father figure. The first interactions reminded me of Damien and Alfred in Son of Batman. Roll the clip.
You have only one servant?
He's not a servant.
Prepare some tea, Pennyworth.
You know, sir, I was thinking about what you said earlier. About seeing Dr. Quinzel.
The coffee's cold.
And later we see Batman soften, changing how he addresses Alfred. We also don't get Bullock's redemption, as he has always been a corrupt cop, but here they make him downright irredeemable, although pretty funny. The first time he meets Batman is the classic upside down torture scene. He even leaves a woman to die in the first episode. Add on to that letting a prisoner escape to then kill them and almost killing Dent as well as Barbara. If it wasn't for Commissioner Gordon putting a piece to his head, he's downright terrible. But again, he does have some funny one-liners. The one that works best, and as we discussed really leaned into what set up Harvey so well, is Barbara Gordon being the defense attorney, giving that great dynamic between Harvey Dent and Barbara. Both start on the righteous side of the law, although on separate ends. As Harvey slowly goes into the unlawful side, she never changes, defending him legally into the last minute and him protecting her in his final minutes. We don't get these funny back and forth moments if they have no reason to be in the same room, especially with differing ideologies, making this quite possibly the biggest and most important change. Now, with all the good and the bad, there were still some moments that I absolutely enjoyed, such as Bruce training in his old-timey underwear, or young Bruce looking absolutely psychotic and not being able to sleep, so he decides it's time to prepare to knock some heads. The show did a wonderful job of planting those nuggets throughout the episodes as these nuggets led into each other in later episodes. Bullock and Flask show how corrupt they are and how dangerous they progressively get throughout the show. Now, although I did have a problem with a majority of the characters, there was one character they gave enough room to breathe and felt real with motives and desires outside of Harvey, and that is Harley Quinn. Just like Harvey Dent, Harley Quinn was done incredibly well for the small amount of episodes we saw her, even detaching herself from Joker, being a character that makes sense within the world. She's even involved with some of my favorite moments of the entire series, and it's when we first see her. She was involved with banger after banger, starting with Bruce Wayne knocking the lights out of this man for speaking ill of his mother. Just an absolutely raw moment, exposing one of the few weak spots Batman has. Bruce is always shown as stoic and unflinching, just unyielding no matter who's taunting him. But this Bruce is more prone to anger than others. It just felt perfect for him, and the growth we see in just the 10 episodes perfectly led into Harley Quinn's introduction, setting up for us to see his past. The interaction between these two was just chef's kiss every time, since there was so much under the surface of what they were saying, so the sneak dissing between the two was intense. As it starts with Harley not taking any crap from Bruce, as it goes, "I'm not much of a belly achers," she just responds with, "Well, the court ordered it, so glad we're on the same page here." In their first meeting, which is under 3 minutes long, she puts him in his place immediately, then hints at knowing more about Bruce than she's giving away. Appearances are often misleading. She isn't convinced one bit by what Bruce Wayne is trying to hide. Bruce realizes just how good Harvey is with just one note. As he was eyeing his folder throughout their meeting, he just had to know what information she had on him and what she was writing down. So in stealthy fashion, he steals the folder, only for there to be a single note surrounded by blank pages. "See you next Tuesday," anticipating he would steal the folder and moving accordingly. At this point, she knew there was so much more to Bruce Wayne, but did she know he was Batman? We shall never know. Even in their second meeting, she claims his entire life as Bruce Wayne is a persona, which is absolutely true. All Bruce has to say to that is, "Life is different for the wealthy." You can then hear the distaste and disgust as she says,
"Someone wealthy, you mean? I'm sure it is."
Props to the voice actress Jamie Chung for giving us that little bit of flair that makes itself obvious once we get to her villain episode, as she is literally rehabbing and torturing rich, terrible people that came to her for therapy. She was also the only villain to capture and outsmart Batman. Not only did she capture him in her villain episode, she successfully told the police how to lure him out, which worked perfectly. But that's enough of the Harley glaze for now. Far from perfect, the Caped Crusader was an amazing drop back in what makes superhero shows so good. This has been Anime Disrupt, and Batman the Caped Crusader has officially been disrobed. Now, time for me to slink back into the night and get back on my anime grind.